third panel. The next couple of minutes we will review access to justice in Nigeria between the executives and citizens' engagement, charting a new course. When you hear the phrase, eyes on the judiciary, we are the eyes on the judiciary, but please do not block the gates when we are leaving. Please, we are only trying to see how we can make Nigeria a better place. All right, straight to the point. A lot of things have been said. More will be said during this particular panel, and I'll go straight to my questions. I'll be starting with Prawa, who is Deputy Director Prawa Ogechi Ogu. My very first question is a combination of two, but it will be seeing yourself doing this for quite a long time. I know you've been doing this for almost 2 decades. I heard that. Your experience providing access to justice in detention centers. Please tell us the three most striking challenges you face in helping citizens get justice.
Okay, thank you so much. I equally want to borrow the phrase leaning, because I think I belong to that side. I want to lean also on existing protocols. I am happy to be here today, and thank you for your question. We have so many challenges, and you are asking for three. My number one challenge is disconnect between our legal framework and practice. What the law says and what implementers of the law do is a big what? Challenge. Now, number two is the seeming, again, disconnection of, between the citizens and what happened in the criminal justice system. One thing is to have laws that protect people. Another thing is for people to know about these laws and appropriate the laws in terms of protecting themselves. So you get worried when you see somebody that is about to be supported and the person is running away, maybe because of reprisal action from one point or the other, or one other, interest. Then there is this big issue again, around huge corruption. Corruption, because that is what impedes on proper practice, meeting up with the provisions of the law. We have heard so many things about torture, about I was discussing with the Chief Judge of Nasarawa State, and I told him, things that are wrong with our death sentence. It's not like people receive death sentence and you are sure about the process and procedures that got them to that point. You can imagine where somebody has confessed to an offense based on torture, and that person gets death penalty. Now you ask yourself again, why must people torture others? And that is where the corruption comes. Like the story that we are told about 4 young boys that were picked. They were not just picked out of habit just to be picked. It's because people are trying to gain something from picking them. Because picking them, processing them, is equal to collecting money. And that is the biggest challenge we have. And when it comes to torture, people even do not talk about it. They end up hiding because of fear of reprisal action. And the question we ask ourselves again is, in terms of providing this support, what has happened over the years? You got the statistics. 80-something% of persons awaiting trial. There was a time we had a project that brought the number down to 65%. I think PR Nigeria then, tracking the decongestion efforts at the correctional centers, got an award outside the country. But what happened after? That is the question, and that is where the issue of inflow comes in. So it falls at the bulk of the arresting agency. When an agency knows all the powers it has, inclusive of discretionary powers, a police officer can send somebody home from the station at the point of arrest. They know that they can do that. But when they fail to do that, you ask yourself, what is the reason? And they equally know that the Tokyo rules talks about detention being a measure of last resort. And when you are going into detention, the whole essence must be for the safety and security of the community. Now, if you are detaining outside these reasons, it becomes a big issue. So all the efforts, there was a time we implemented prison reform project, and at Ikoyi prisons, the efforts working with paralegals, pro bono lawyers, you release like 25 persons. You'll be fanning yourself. We have done it today. That same day, 80 persons will enter that custodial center and make nonsense of everything. So why are we getting to this side? It is because the inflow, the arresting agencies have left what the purpose of arrest is about, which is the safety and security of the community, and they are doing something else. Okay, maybe let me not.
Thank you very much. Yes, those three striking challenges, well and duly noted. I'll move now to Funke Adeoye, Hope Behind Bars Africa. And my question will be, how functional is the administration of Criminal Justice Monitoring Committee that you have witnessed so far? Is it truly functioning, in your opinion?
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. I would stand on existing protocols. So I would say the Administration of Criminal Justice Monitoring Committee was created to ensure that the provisions of the ACJA is properly implemented. And when we have done, Hope Behind Bars Africa has done some work with the ACJMC in the past. When we look at the various provisions of the ACJ vis-a-vis how the ACJMC was supposed to come in, I would say to a very large extent, the ACJMC is functional, at least in FCT. In terms of ensuring that the provisions of the ACJ is understood by the relevant stakeholders, in terms of ensuring that the relevant stakeholders are carrying out the various activities for which they are engaged with in the FCT, and also just, doing their part of the work in terms of legal aid. Recently, the ACJMC launched the Court Duty Solicitor Scheme as a follow-up of the Police Duty Solicitor Scheme, and one of the reasons for that was to deal with the issue that Mrs. Oge had mentioned, the issue of the inflow. And what's the essence of the PDSS? The PDSS, Police Duty Solicitor Scheme, is to help to work with the police to ensure that there is a filtering mechanism of some sort from the angle of the police, so that cases that do not have any business going to the criminal justice system don't have to go there. And I know that to a very large extent in the FCT, that scheme was functional. Even though I don't work with the ACJMC, we had done some work around that together. With respect to other states of the Federation, I wouldn't particularly say, like I said, I don't work with the ACJMC. But I would say that if we are here today and we are talking about all of these issues, it means that there is still a whole lot of work that needs to be done in carefully putting out what the functions of the ACJMC is supposed to be vis-a-vis what they are supposed to do. So I'm sure there is a lot of work that needs to be done on that. And also that there is also a lot of work that stakeholders need to do in helping to achieve some of the justice, the justice ideals that we want to see. And I'm going to give an example. Earlier, there were conversations about how the legal aid is underfunded. And I do know that, present in this room are lots of stakeholders from the CSO space. As an organization, our organization, Hope Behind Bars Africa, like I said earlier, have, in our own way, provided access to justice to indigent pretrial detainees. So the long and short of this is that we don't have to wait for the government agencies alone to do it. everybody has a role to play. Every organization, every stakeholder has a role to play in this conversation, and we all must bring our bit to ensure the work is done. And then finally, that it's important that we put out the narrative of how we need to achieve the ideals we want to see in the criminal justice administration. Most times people think of criminal justice administration as it's something that is just about the police, the judiciary, the corrections, and maybe the CSOs. But really, it's about the security of the states. Nigeria's current crime rate has increased tremendously because, a lot of work is not done in this area, especially in areas like the 3 Rs: reintegration, reformation, and rehabilitation. Now, if the right narrative is put out there for people to understand that they have a role to play, in the reintegration and in just ensuring that recidivism is reduced to a very large extent, I think it will go a long way in achieving the ideals of access to justice. Because for me, access to justice is not just about what happens at the entry point or at the exit point. It's also about what happened post the exit point. It's also about what happens when people who have been adjudged to have committed an offense, after they've left the correctional facility, what has happened to them when they leave there. So it's important that we put out the narrative, and also it's also important that we put out a narrative that would help the society, the community, to see the role that they have to play in all of this.
All right. Thank you very much, Funke Adeoye, Hope Behind Bars Africa. All right, you will notice that I started off with the CSOs. I would move to our Honorable Attorney Generals very soon to respond to everything mentioned. But first of all, let me speak with Team Lead Restorative Justice Initiative, Chibueze Maduka. Please pass on the mic. My question would be, CSOs play a vital part in A to J, that's access to justice. Now, evaluating your involvement, what are the things that are currently written in the ACJA but are not working?
Okay, thank you very much for that correction. So, what are some of the things that are currently written in the ACJA that are not working? And I think one of the first things I will point out is, if you check the objective of the ACJA, one of the major objectives of the ACJA is what is actually not working. And for the sake of time, the purpose of the ACJA was to shorten the time of trial. So it's supposed to be, that's why you see there are checks, there are timelines, even for remand orders, 14 days. But the whole essence of the ACJA, if we tear out, while talking to some friends and on other things, I would say, when we see something working, if we tear out the beautiful things you admire, for example, someone driving a nice Lexus car outside there, when you tear out the Lexus car, the thing that makes it work is not too interesting. It's the engine, it's oils, it's something that you don't like as such. So when we remove all the beautiful things we like about the ACJA, the plea bargaining, the innovations, the point and the objective of the ACJA is for speedy trial, and that is what we don't have yet. We still make the complaints that we have and the issues we have because people still go to prison, they spend 2 years, they spend 3 years, they spend 4 years, and these are the things that the ACJA was supposed to checkmate, and we don't see that in practice, and I think that's a major thing. So if we can get to the point where someone can say, maybe the way our election petitions work, so an election petitioner knows that in 3 months, in 6 months, I will know that it has gotten to Supreme Court or Court of Appeal. So if a criminal or a suspect could say, oh, by the time the police is arresting me, in the next 3 months or 4 months, this will be done. I'll have my life back, or I'll spend the time in correctional center. It's better. But once the police picks you, or if you are driving at night and the police is stopping you, are like, if they catch you here, nobody knows where you are ending. You don't even know when the matter is going to end. So I think that's a major thing. If we get to the point where the main objective of the ACJ is working, which is speedy trial, however we want to get it done, let's get it done so that a suspect knows that once I'm entering through that funnel that Otoge talked about, that in the next 3 months, 4 months, let me speak broken, bad as he bad, I go come out or I will be in correctional center. And I think that will make more sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being very apt with that response.